Imagine a tropical paradise where azure waters meet golden sands, a haven of peace and beauty. But beneath this serene surface lies a tale of betrayal so profound it defies belief. A son, consumed by greed, orchestrates the unthinkable, the murder of his own father. Join us as we unravel the chilling story of Juan Mauricio Peralta's demise at the hands of his heir, exposing the dark undercurrents that can lurk even in paradise. San Andrés, Colombia, an island jewel set in the turquoise expanse of the Caribbean Sea, renowned globally for its breathtaking sea of 7 colors, vibrant coral reefs, and the promise of tranquil escape. It's a place where the rhythm of life typically sways to the gentle lapping of waves and the warmth of tropical breezes, attracting visitors seeking relaxation and beauty. Yet, beneath this idyllic facade, and the quietude of late August 2020, even as the world grappled with the unusual stillness of a global pandemic, the island's inherent peace was violently and irrevocably shattered by a crime that defied comprehension. The epicenter of this disturbance was the sudden, brutal death of Juan Mauricio Peralta. Within the close-knit community of San Andrés, Peralta was not an unknown entity, he was a prominent figure, recognized widely as a successful and industrious local merchant who had carved out a significant presence on the island. His death was not the result of an accident or natural causes, it was a homicide, carried out with cold efficiency. The initial reports hinted at chaos and confusion, perhaps a robbery gone tragically wrong or the fatal settling of a business dispute. However, as the initial shock began to subside and the first layers of the investigation were peeled back, a far more disturbing and horrifying truth started to surface, one that struck at the very heart of familial bonds. The emerging reality was almost unthinkable. Juan Mauricio Peralta had been murdered, and the investigation would soon point towards a chilling conspiracy planned with calculated precision. The alleged architect of this fatal scheme was not some faceless enemy or business rival, but rather his own eldest son, Juan David Peralta. This accusation of patricide, the ultimate act of betrayal, sent profound shock waves not just through the Peralta family but across the entire island community, staining the image of paradise with the darkness of intimate violence. In the immediate aftermath, Juan David stood as the primary witness, his account forming the crucial first narrative provided to the authorities who arrived at the grim scene that August morning. But the story told under duress and apparent grief was merely the beginning of a complex and arduous investigation. What lay ahead was a painstaking process of untangling truths from carefully constructed falsehoods, a journey into the hidden dynamics of a family marked by simmering, deep-seated resentment, avaricious greed, and the devastating consequences of profound betrayal. The case would force a confrontation with the uncomfortable reality that the deepest darkness can sometimes reside within the ostensibly safest havens. To grasp the enormity of this family tragedy and the motivations behind such an unnatural act, it is essential to first understand the man whose life was cut short, the journey he undertook, the empire he built on this Caribbean island, and the intricate personal life that ultimately became entangled in his violent demise. To understand the depths of the family tragedy that unfolded in San Andrés, one must first delve into the life of the man at its center. Juan Mauricio Peralta, whose existence was so violently extinguished on that August morning, embodied a story of ambition, relentless drive, and the intricate, often contradictory, realities of a life built from the ground up. His journey began far from the sun-drenched shores of the Caribbean, originating in the sprawling urban landscape of Bogotá. Born into humble circumstances, Mauricio possessed a keen awareness of limited opportunities and harbored aspirations for a more prosperous future. Driven by this desire, he made the life-altering decision to relocate to San Andrés, attracted by the island's burgeoning reputation as a major Colombian tourist destination and the potential it represented. Arriving on the island, Mauricio didn't shy away from hard work. With tireless effort and dedication, he integrated himself into the local economy, initially carving out a niche by rising before dawn each day to purchase fish directly from the market, which he would then resell. This early venture, demanding but vital, not only provided income but also fostered connections and earned him the respect and appreciation of many islanders. It was within this context of daily striving that his personal life also took shape. He met Marta Merguicio, a young island worker who, like him, was navigating the challenges of getting ahead. Mauricio's inherently cheerful and attentive character won her over, leading to a relationship that formalized after 2 years of dating. They embarked on their life together with minimal resources, starting in a small rented room, their union built on shared effort and mutual dreams. The year 2000 marked a significant personal milestone with the birth of their first son, Juan David. Mauricio embraced fatherhood with enthusiasm, balancing his demanding work schedule with family life and contributing to household chores. His entrepreneurial spirit, however, was restless. Guided by an innate business instinct and his oft-repeated motto, "You have to go out and produce," Mauricio constantly sought new opportunities. He strategically invested his savings, making a significant move into moneylending. This proved financially transformative, helping establish him firmly within the island's economic fabric. His growing success led him to formalize this operation, opening a loan office within the hardware store owned by his friend, Marino Valaqueron, further solidifying his status as a recognized merchant. Recognizing the immense potential of tourism, Mauricio reinvested his earnings into this lucrative sector. He initially invested in inns before identifying a high-demand niche, the rental of mules, the popular all-terrain tourist vehicles essential for exploring San Andrés. He grew this operation substantially, eventually managing a fleet of at least 15 vehicles, each generating significant daily income, reportedly averaging 400,000 pesos per day, making it a cornerstone of his prosperity. This success translated into tangible wealth, allowing him to acquire multiple properties and build a solid financial heritage. Yet, this upward trajectory was complicated by personal failings. His close friend Marino acknowledged Mauricio had a notable weakness for women, leading to persistent infidelity that strained his marriage. Exhausted by these repeated betrayals, Juan Mauricio made the decision to end their relationship in 2012. At the time, Juan David was 12, and their younger son merely 7. The separation proceeded amicably, prioritizing the children's stability. Mauricio moved out but allowed Marta and the boys to remain in the family home, and the two maintained a functional co-parenting relationship based on shared responsibility. Even after their split, Marta acknowledged Mauricio remained a reliable source of support for her and the children during challenging times. For 8 years, this carefully balanced, albeit fractured, structure held the successful businessman, the provider, the separated father navigating the complexities he had created, seemingly established in the life he had built, unaware it was all poised to unravel on a single, violent morning in El Carmelo. That carefully balanced, albeit complex, life Juan Mauricio Peralta had constructed over decades on San Andrés came to an abrupt and violent end as dawn broke on Monday, August 24, 2020. The chain of events leading to the tragedy began with a seemingly mundane father-son interaction. Mauricio had contacted his eldest son, Juan David, explaining that one of his valuable tourist rental vehicles, locally known as a mule, was damaged and required towing. He asked Juan David for assistance with the task the following day. Juan David agreed, and the two made plans to meet early the next morning to move the vehicle. As arranged, Mauricio and Juan David convened on a street within the El Carmelo neighborhood, a central area in downtown San Andrés. It was early, the Caribbean sun was just beginning to climb, painting the sky with the first hints of daylight around 6:30 a.m. What should have been a routine chore, however, rapidly spiraled into horror. At that precise time, Marta Mauricio's phone rang. It was her son, Juan David, his voice frantic and panicked. Mom, they killed my dad," he allegedly conveyed through the line. Marta, shocked, pressed for information. What happened? Where was he? Juan David's distressed reply placed him firmly at the location. "No, Mom, we're here by El Carmelo." Simultaneously, reports from alarmed citizens began filtering into the San Andrés Police Department regarding a possible violent incident in the Rascal sector, adjacent to El Carmelo. Recognizing the potential severity, authorities quickly mobilized an operation towards the island's center. Their arrival confirmed the worst fears. Officers found Juan Mauricio Peralta's lifeless body lying exposed in the middle of a public road. The scene was immediately secured by the criminalistics team of the CJN. Initial observations painted a grim picture. Mauricio was face up, his feet angled towards a nearby fence. He had suffered a single, fatal gunshot wound to the head, inflicted by what appeared to be a revolver. Based on the state of the scene, investigators estimated that only about 10 minutes had elapsed between the shooting and the discovery of the body. The news traveled swiftly through the awakening island. By the time Juan Mauricio reached El Carmelo, the area was already demarcated by yellow police tape, officers working to preserve evidence and control the scene. Distraught and pushing past the official barriers in her shock and grief, she moved towards where her former husband lay. Amidst the unfolding chaos, the arrival of police, the securing of the crime scene, the dawning realization within the neighborhood that a prominent local figure had been murdered, stood Juan David Peralta. As the only known person present during the fatal moments, his initial account, delivered amidst apparent shock and sorrow, became the foundation upon which the entire investigation would initially be built. The police now faced the grim task of deciphering the events of that fatal morning, starting with the testimony of the son who claimed to have witnessed his father's murder. With the El Carmelo crime scene secured and the initial shockwaves rippling through San Andrés, the formal investigation into the murder of Juan Mauricio Peralta commenced, spearheaded by Submayor Julian Pino of the San Andrés Police. The immediate focus, naturally, fell upon the only known witness present during the fatal moments, the victim's eldest son, Juan David Peralta. His account would form the crucial starting point for an investigation that began, essentially, from zero. Juan David provided his statement to investigator Pino, detailing the sequence of events as he claimed they occurred. He explained the agreed-upon task of helping his father tow the damaged mule. His narrative described Mauricio bending down to untie the rope connecting the two vehicles. At that precise moment, Juan David stated, a single, sharp detonation shattered the morning calm. He asserted that when he turned around in response to the sound, his father was already collapsing to the ground. Crucially, Juan David maintained that he did not see the person or persons who fired the fatal shot, leaving investigators without an initial description of the assailant. Lacking immediate external leads, the investigation initially pursued theories grounded in the victim's known activities and potential vulnerabilities. Given Juan Mauricio Peralta's established role as a moneylender on the island, the first logical hypothesis explored was that the murder stemmed from a business dispute or debt collection. This line of reasoning acknowledged the inherent risks associated with the loan business, where dealing with significant sums of cash and managing debtors can unfortunately create dangerous adversaries. Investigators methodically pursued this angle, accessing Mauricio's detailed records which included cards documenting his various debtors. They interviewed each individual listed, probing for any signs of conflict or motive. However, this avenue quickly proved unproductive. None of the debtors interviewed raised any suspicion. Instead, they consistently indicated their intention to settle their outstanding amounts, even after Mauricio's demise. The debt motive, while plausible on the surface, failed to yield any concrete suspects. As the debt theory dissolved, the investigation took a new direction prompted by information provided by Peralta's relatives, including Juan David himself. They revealed to Julian Pino that Mauricio had recently been subjected to extortion attempts. The family reported that he had received pamphlets demanding payment, accompanied by explicit threats against his life or the lives of his family members should he refuse to comply. This alarming information was corroborated by Mauricio's ex-wife, Juan Mauricio. She confirmed the existence of the threats and stated that Mauricio had, in fact, paid 2 million pesos hoping to appease the extortionists. Marta recalled her worried conversations with Mauricio about the situation, questioning the wisdom of continuous payments. Investigators delved into this lead, attempting to trace the origin of the pamphlets and identify the individuals or groups behind the intimidation campaign. Yet, this path also encountered obstacles. Authorities soon grew skeptical that the local gangs typically involved in extorting merchants possessed the operational capacity or sheer audacity required to execute such a brazen, targeted assassination in broad daylight, particularly one carried out with apparent precision and without reliance on typical getaway methods like motorcycles. This uncertainty surrounding the extortion plot, combined with the dead end reached regarding potential debt-related retribution, left Sub-Inspector Julian Pino and his team facing a frustrating impasse. The investigation, initially guided by the witness account and the victim's known business dealings, seemed stalled. The lack of progress forced Pino to completely rethink the investigative strategy, widening the scope to consider other, less obvious possibilities. Hypotheses involving theft, personal revenge, or even a crime driven by passion were now back on the table, requiring investigators to look beyond the immediate circumstances of the crime itself. The early phase was proving to be an exercise in chasing shadows, where logical leads evaporated under scrutiny. With external motives failing to solidify, the investigation necessarily began to turn inward, focusing on the intricate network of personal relationships and financial ties within Juan Mauricio Peralta's own circle, hoping that answers lay hidden closer to home. With the initial avenues of debt-related motives and external extortion plots yielding no tangible leads, the investigation into Juan Mauricio Peralta's murder necessarily pivoted inward. Investigator Julian Pino and his team began to scrutinize the complex web of relationships surrounding the victim, focusing intensely on those individuals who stood closest to him, both in his personal life and his thriving business ventures. The lack of progress demanded a shift towards examining potential motives hidden within Mauricio's own circle of trust, exploring the unsettling possibility that the betrayal originated from within. One name quickly surfaced as a person of significant interest: Marino Villacuron. Marino wasn't merely a casual acquaintance, he was widely regarded as Mauricio's best friend and a close business associate. His hardware store conveniently served as the physical location for Mauricio's moneylending office, placing Marino in a position of unique proximity and insight into the victim's daily operations and financial dealings. Furthermore, this office housed the safes where Mauricio secured his significant assets, including substantial amounts of cash and crucial business records. While it was generally believed that only Mauricio possessed the combinations to these safes, Marino's undeniable physical access to their location made him a figure investigators could not ignore. Adding a layer of intrigue to this seemingly steadfast friendship was crucial testimony provided by Marta Murguicio. Mauricio's ex-wife informed the police that, in conversations preceding his death, Mauricio had allegedly expressed a growing sense of distrust towards Marino. More significantly, she claimed Mauricio had specifically instructed her that if anything adverse should happen to him, she should ensure the contents of the safes were thoroughly checked, emphasizing their critical importance. This reported warning from the victim himself immediately set off alarm bells for investigator Pino, prompting a deeper look into Marino's potential connection to the crime. The investigative logic was straightforward. Marino possessed intimate knowledge of Mauricio's finances, had access to the location of his stored wealth, knew his network of debtors, and, theoretically, stood to gain considerably from Mauricio's death, potentially inheriting control over contacts, funds, or even aspects of the business. This confluence of access, knowledge, and potential motive led the police to formally interrogate Marino Villacuron. During questioning, Marino staunchly denied any financial disagreements or problems with Mauricio. He painted a picture of unwavering loyalty and trust, recounting instances where Mauricio had confidently left large sums of cash, reportedly as much as 50 million pesos at a time, in his care without question. However, while maintaining his innocence, Marino also made pointed accusations directed at Marta and certain members of her family, potentially attempting to deflect suspicion or perhaps revealing genuine underlying tensions unknown to investigators. His statements, whether truthful or strategic diversion, ultimately left police with more questions than answers. Simultaneously, as doubts lingered around Marino, Sub-Inspector Pino directed investigative resources towards Marta Murguicio herself. The possibility of her involvement emerged through a different lens, focusing initially on a potential passionate motive. Some testimonies indicated that Marta might have retained feelings of jealousy towards Mauricio even years after their 2012 separation, allegedly complaining about his relationships with other women or his social life. Could lingering resentment or jealousy have fueled a desire for revenge? Compounding this line of inquiry was the discovery of a significant life insurance policy Mauricio held, valued at 700 million pesos, with Marta and their 2 children named as the beneficiaries. Investigators noted with considerable interest that Marta had already initiated the procedures to claim this substantial sum mere days after the murder occurred. This perceived haste inevitably cast suspicion on her motives, suggesting that financial gain, rather than, or in addition to, jealousy, might have been the driving force. When confronted with these possibilities, Marta flatly denied harboring any romantic jealousy towards her ex-husband. She insisted their post-separation disagreements revolved around practical matters like finances or the time Mauricio spent with their children, not other women. She portrayed herself as having evolved into more of a confidant during his later years, even offering him personal advice. Regarding the insurance claim, she defended her actions as necessary and appropriate procedures following his death, maintaining she held no prior interest in fighting over Mauricio's assets. Despite these emphatic denials from both Marino and Marta, investigator Pino chose not to eliminate either from the list of potential suspects. The investigation found itself entangled in a perplexing knot of conflicting narratives, potential financial incentives obscured by claims of loyalty, and simmering personal histories masked by assertions of amicable separation. The circle of trust around Juan Mauricio Peralta appeared fractured, riddled with potential betrayals. Yet, hard evidence remained elusive. The case was balanced precariously on hearsay, circumstantial details, and suspicions, lacking the definitive proof needed to move forward. Investigators desperately required something more concrete, something objective, to finally cut through the fog of ambiguity and illuminate the path towards the truth. Stuck in a frustrating cycle of suspicion and counteraccusation without definitive proof, the investigation into Juan Mauricio Peralta's murder desperately needed an objective breakthrough. That pivotal moment arrived not through further witness testimony or financial audits, but via the unblinking eyes of technology. Sub-Inspector Julian Pino and his team meticulously gathered and analyzed footage from multiple security cameras positioned near the El Carmelo crime scene, leveraging recordings from both official police cameras and privately owned systems overlooking the street. While the sole eyewitness, Juan David, maintained he had seen nothing of consequence, these digital recordings held the silent, crucial clues that would ultimately crack the case wide open. The footage laid bare the chilling prelude to the murder. Investigators watched as two young men arrived together in an alleyway adjacent to the street where Mauricio would soon meet his end. The recordings captured them deliberately attempting to obscure their identities, donning caps, t-shirts, and masks. Critically, one of the individuals was seen loading a firearm. Moments later, the camera tracked this same young man, distinguishable by a striped t-shirt, as he calmly crossed the street towards Juan Mauricio Peralta, who was preoccupied with the damaged vehicle. The footage then captured the fatal shot, followed by both individuals swiftly fleeing the scene, retracing their steps back through the same alley, demonstrating clear knowledge of the area and a planned escape route. Although the assailants had taken care to cover their faces, the recordings offered other vital details. Investigators noted with great interest that both individuals were walking barefoot, an unusual detail suggesting possible haste or, more likely, an attempt to move quietly and avoid leaving distinct shoe prints. Furthermore, their movements and demeanor conveyed a striking familiarity and ease within the neighborhood's streets and alleys. This led Pino to a crucial deduction: the perpetrators were almost certainly locals, residents of the El Carmelo sector itself, rather than hired guns brought in from elsewhere. The absence of a motorcycle, often employed in targeted killings for a quick escape, further suggested an intimate understanding of the victim's specific location and timing, implying inside knowledge. Armed with these visual details and behavioral observations, investigator Pino shrewdly utilized the power of local police intelligence. He presented the findings to the police quadrant responsible for patrolling the El Carmelo neighborhood daily. While the faces remained hidden, the suspects' distinct physical characteristics, their height, build, and particularly their specific gait and way of walking, resonated with officers intimately familiar with the area's residents. Through this collaborative effort, combining technological evidence with on-the-ground knowledge, the police successfully identified the alleged perpetrators. The investigation now had names: Diker Puerto Villalobos, a 22-year-old man already known to local police for aggressive tendencies and alleged drug use; and an unnamed minor accomplice who possessed an extensive criminal history involving robberies and known associations with other illicit activities within the community. To add technical weight to the identification, investigators performed a morphological comparison between the video stills and existing records of the suspects, achieving a match deemed sufficient, reportedly around 33%, to secure judicial authorization. Based on the compelling evidence from the security footage and the positive identifications, the 50th Sectional Prosecutor's Office of San Andrés issued arrest warrants for both individuals. The net closed quickly. On September 7, 2020, merely 2 weeks after the murder that had shocked the island, police apprehended Diker Puerta Villalobos at his home in downtown San Andrés. During the arrest, a key piece of corroborating evidence solidified his connection to the crime. He was found wearing the exact same pair of shorts sported by the shooter captured in the security camera footage. With one of the alleged hitmen in custody, investigators finally had the leverage needed to break through the wall of silence and speculation. Under interrogation, Diker Puerta Villalobos confessed. He admitted his direct involvement in the homicide, acknowledging that he was the individual who had fired the fatal shot that killed Juan Mauricio Peralta. But his confession delivered a revelation far more devastating than simply confirming his own guilt. Diker stated unequivocally that he had not acted alone or chosen his target randomly. He revealed he had been hired, contracted to execute the murder. The person who hired him, he declared, was none other than the victim's eldest son, Juan David Peralta. The agreed price for this ultimate act of patricide was 12 million pesos. According to Diker, the motive Juan David conveyed was brutally simple: greed. Juan David wanted his father eliminated so he could inherit the substantial fortune Mauricio had amassed, the properties, the businesses, the cash. This chilling confession ripped the case wide open, confirming the investigators' deepest, most unsettling suspicions and redirecting the investigation's full force towards Juan David. The question that now loomed largest wasn't merely who pulled the trigger, but unraveling the depths of resentment and avarice that could drive a son to orchestrate such a profound and cold-blooded betrayal against his own father. Diker Puerta Villalobos's chilling confession ripped the case wide open, confirming the unthinkable and redirecting the investigation's full force towards Juan David Peralta. The question that now burned wasn't merely who pulled the trigger,